just felt to me at that point, Morocco just couldn't deal with that, despite them with good players, Bahi and Al-Babi were really good. Throughout the tournament, yeah, they couldn't really do it.
Well, I think Morocco know that it's just so they're always going to be up against it. But yeah, I think some people will be listening to this and thinking, I'm sorry, was I watching a different game? Morocco seemed to kind of batter France and really go at them. They give a great account of themselves.
Oh, they did.
In that second half, they went for it, and I think you messaged the group, Andy, saying actually it's really nice to see Morocco come out, because in the previous two games, which of course
it's not that type of
famous victories
yeah.
that they were and rightly so, being two big sides, big European sides. If that matters, perhaps it doesn't. But they won those games, but they were quite compact defensively. They did what they needed to do to get through.
Yeah.
Whereas this time they came out, they left Mbappe pretty much to his own devices, and it didn't seem to sting too much until France did get a second goal. So we can't be silly here.
It's easier to do.
Yeah.
It's easier to do that when you've got someone like Hakimi who can make a recovery run to catch up with him.
True, and also when you're already down, you've got nothing to lose because you're already losing the game. But it was scintillating stuff at times.
It was, and I kind of felt that like if this World Cup was a 7-course meal for Morocco, I guess for Ziyech and Buffon in particular, this was the cheese platter, wasn't it? This was the bit you really earned, because they've had to do so much defensive work. Two players who are not especially primed for defensive work, and that again is a massive hat to Ruggie, that he's managed to get that out of them. And there they were a little bit more off the leash. And you said about Nai as well, he's actually wonderful in form, and I'm pretty sure will end up turning up in the Premier League at some point in January. But they just didn't have that decisiveness to finish it off, did they?
No, and you talk about it being sort of a 7-course meal. I mean, to extrapolate that out a bit, well, clearly that means you're playing the 7th match, which is either the final or the 3rd place player. Clearly the final.
Oh, so was this pud and the cheese courses on?
Well, no, but I think if you get to the final,
there's an obligation to have the cheese course, even if you're a bit full up.
Yeah, if you're in the final, then you've got the fondue fountains, you've got the whole lot. Whereas clearly, if you're the 3rd place players, there's a little chocolate or something.
Yeah, chocolate's the way out.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? I like a chocolate, don't get me wrong.
You've got to eat the 3rd course at the same time as everyone else, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
And you don't get to choose that gets pulled out to you like a boosh and the 3rd place playoff is like in the fruit shoot at Nando's. Yeah. Or I was going to say a flat iron where they kick you out the door with the ice cream.
That's
There's no dessert menu at all.
Yeah, but that's if you refuse to pay.
A painful metaphor that we really led into.
You shouldn't be getting kicked out of restaurants, of course. But anyway, you know, the story of your life, mate. But I think you're right, Andy, to highlight some of those players. I mean, Amrabat was brilliant in the midfield as well, and so on. But Antoine Griezmann was brilliant in the midfield for France again, and one of the players of the tournament.
You said Andy, but you looked at me.
I did.
What do you want?
Luke.
Okay, fine. I'll do it. Don't need to ask me twice.
That was odd, that wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a bit odd, yeah. But he's been outstanding the whole tournament, and a lot's been made of the kind of slightly changed role he's performed. He's certainly done the work of a number of men because he's had to, and it's been devastatingly effective. And you can't take your eyes off him if you're a opposition player for a second, because he can pop up anywhere. Obviously, technically very good.
Defending as well. I mean, Paul Pogba got involved on Instagram stories simply saying Griezmann Kante.
Yeah.
I would like a bit more of a portman than Antonio Conte.
Yeah. He's not a listener, is he?
Yeah. It never strikes me as one.
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
Yeah.
I mean, if he has been a listener, I can fully understand why he might have switched off. Particularly on the Graham Souness episode.
Yeah.
But what Paul Pogba actually means there is, I don't do that kind of work, and I'm playing deeper than him, so I don't know how he's getting through that as well. But yeah, you did see him pop up making a couple of interventions in his own half and in his own in his own third as well. It's part of what he brings. And Andy said he was an exponent of Cholissimo. Now I know what that means. A lot of people listening might know what it means. Andy said, why don't you explain it? Dig in. Ball's not important. Yeah, just keep shaping where your bollocks off, basically. But he does treat the ball as important, but he's got it as well. So he's got both sides of the. Yes, he has. I mean, that is the remarkable thing about him. If you look through his career, it starts off as a left winger, then goes to being a right winger, then centre forward, both first and second, number 10, then this box to box.
A proper goal scorer in centre forward as well.
Yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely. And there's this idea, and I saw it actually floated on Spanish television yesterday again, that, you know, Diego Simeone has shaped him into the kindred spirits. There's no doubt about that, Griezmann and Simeone. But Griezmann was Simeone ready when he arrived at Atletico, which very few players are, because he's like, not only am I happy with doing the unreasonable amount of work that you're asking me to do, I want to see that and raise it a little bit more. And you see that, you know, when he's like picking up the pieces in his own penalty box last night, it's extraordinary. And yet, he creates so many chances in the final third as well.
No one's created more chances than him in the World Cup.
Is that right? Yeah, that's interesting. I think the really interesting thing with him, and with Lloris, who you were talking about before, who's had a great World Cup, and Giroud as well, that experience, I think, makes a massive difference, because there's a lot of talk about what France aren't in this World Cup, and people feel there should be a bit more front foot with the players they've got. Firstly, Deschamps is not about that at all now. We've known that from the last World Cup, or we should know that from the last World Cup. The other thing is, the amount of injuries they've had, and I realise Morocco had a few weary legs and then some coming into the semi-final. They would cause most teams to totally unravel. You look at the players who were out before the World Cup and how they have to reshape around this very inexperienced midfield, and that is the reason that Griezmann is there in the first place. Then you look on the evens, even Upamecano and Rabiot go down because of the air conditioning. Would you believe? They get ill. What do you mean from the air conditioning? What do you mean by that? How do they get ill by the air conditioning?
I think Andy's trying to peddle a little conspiracy.
I'll do as well. Get
Oh no, we'll go on to that in a second. We'll go on to that in a second.
over it. What do you mean that you can't just
I
say
think Shai was that good at penalties.
you can't just say the air conditioning made the meal and not explain.
Stay away from that air conditioning.
Yeah.
It's like boxers in Vegas. They've got really heavy colds / flu, and the French team believe it's from the air conditioning.
Yeah.
All right.
Going from cold to hot, going from cold to hot all the time.
Yeah, but anyway, they lose two, especially Rabiot, very, very important players on the
Why is
Euro.
Rabiot's mum not looking after him anymore? She came round and gave him a little
Hot toddy.
lick washer or hot toddy, yeah, exactly.
They're on the dials, the air conditioning.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you go back to right at the beginning, where they concede that crappy goal to Australia, and Luke Hernandez's tournament is over just on the spot. As we said, he's one of the most influential players. There are so many points at which this could unravel, and yet they hold on to it. And when you talk about champions and, you know, knowing how to win and all that sort of thing, those are all the things that make you think that they do. You look at Kolo Muani coming on and scoring goal, which is a wonderful story in itself. He's had a very good club season. There is no way he is anywhere near this squad, good player as he is, if they haven't had a shitload of injuries. And here he is scoring in a World Cup semi-final.
I think that yeah, you're right, Andy, and they can produce moments of quality. There's no doubt about that. And I think that I think the comparisons are fair from the previous World Cup. I just think they should just have a little bit of a rethink. You think about that game, which we will mention obviously in the second half when we talk about Argentina, when they beat Argentina 4-3 in the last World Cup, and that was
Flattering to Argentina.
very flattering. But the fact is, when the game opened up and the space was there, they took it. They said thanks very much, like they did in the previous game against Poland in this World Cup in the second round. You know, Mbappe smashes those two, and Poland weren't very good, and there's the game there. Whereas in this game and the game against England, they don't have that amount of space. But if you give up that space, they'll just go, okay, great. And if you don't, I think quality will kind of shine through and get the job done anyway. They're very versatile, and like I say, very comfortable defending so deep. And I know Morocco at times, you know, one might say had them on the ropes and so on, but really, and a bit like against England, you can't think of that many opportunities. There was a few where you think, oh my God, I can't believe Morocco didn't score like that.
Well, the one off the line, that shouldn't have.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I mean, I literally did say that to
They're 2-0 up anyway.
Yeah.
Fine, but I literally did say that to myself when I was watching it. I cannot believe that's not gone.
But what I'm saying is they give up a lot of ground and a lot of territory, but they don't actually give away that many chances.
So Morocco had, you know, roughly commensurate amount of shots as France did. And I don't think you talk the quality of chances and stuff. Ultimately, France were a better team than Morocco, so it's fine. And France won 2-0. Morocco gave a great account of themselves. I do think on another day could have been slightly different. I do think if you give up a goal to a team as good as France that early, whoever you are, it's going to be tough for you. And Morocco, to their immense credit, came out and gave it a good go. And they played in a completely different way than we've seen them play. And that takes a lot of fucking bollocks, because normally they're not playing that way, and France want you to have the ball. And Morocco are in a position where they have to have the ball because they need to score.
Rick Raggy said, after the game, we've given a good image of our country and African football. We represent our continent, people always respected us. They this is a big thing for everyone. I don't think many people talk about celebrating football, and to get that sort of monkey off the back, if you see what I mean, I think it's important. It just shows you that it just gives that little extra belief. It doesn't mean to say that in the next World Cup suddenly an African team's going to do this, and how much does one side from a totally different part of the continent take this. But you never know. Even if it gives them an extra 5%, these are things that matter. But certainly from Morocco, it gives them full self-belief. You talk about the whole continent, but in the context of just that home country, you've seen the support. You've seen how incredible they are, and that can get something going. I mean, what Draghi also said is that we should be qualifying for every World Cup. Now it's difficult because Africa are only given 4th places, and it's a tricky old process. But now they'll feel like they're top of the pile now. And like I say, the fan base there. I mean, it was
incredible. It was an incredible atmosphere. Draghi gave an amazing account of himself in the national anthem as well, which is great to see. It was passionate, and this game also gave me my favourite commentary moment of the tournament when Amrabat flew into Kylian Mbappe. And the commentator said Amrabat almost dug up 3 pounds of potatoes there because all this turf just went flying, and then Mbappe didn't know what had hit him, and it turned out nothing had hit him because he got out of the way of it in time, but he stayed down anyway. But that was an incredible bit of reduction by Amrabat.
Do you think Didier Deschamps gave a great account of himself when apparently in the build-up to the game he planked for an hour straight to relax?
I'm currently watching a video of this because I could not believe that he's planked for an hour straight.
Firstly, being interviewed, by the way.
Yeah. Firstly, he's on his forearms.
What's wrong with that?
Secondly,
that's a type of plank.
Yeah.
Second, but it's much easier. Secondly,
while being interviewed, Andy.
Secondly,
it's easy. Don't worry about it, Dave.
He's moved into a sphinx on various occasions as well.
Oh.
So his core is basically touching the ground. I think that's slightly.
Andy Marcus, just so you know, Andy went to hot yoga this morning.
Did he?
So he's full of beans. He thinks he's the fitness guy.
I did not say or infer that.
Do you know what the record for plank is? It's about 9 hours. The record.
Is it? It's incredible.
You got nowhere near that.
I don't know on the forearms.
Andy, are you the fitness guy?
He does think he's a fitness guy. The first thing he said to me this morning was hot yoga this morning, and I was well, you say you were the least dickheadish in there. Name the yoga studio. Actually.
I look forward to being invited back.
Yeah.
Was Goldie there? Andy did yoga with Goldie once.
Oh my god!
He did the yoga with Goldie.
Don't slag off Andy though. He can get very angry. As Goldie would say, temper.
I wouldn't get very angry in a yoga situation.
No,
it's not possible.
That's why Didier Deschamps. Look at his sang-froid.
Is that what it is?
Sang-froid.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
And other French words. When all said and done, gentlemen, though, Morocco have made it through to the 3rd and 4th place playoff on Saturday against Croatia. But all joking aside, a Moroccan fan told the BBC after the game, Saturday is what they call a loser's game, but a 3rd place finish would mean the world to us because we have achieved the unexpected. There are no tears today because we're so proud of what these players have done for the fans and the country.
Yeah, and I think if you talk about the 3rd place playoff being a chalk ice mark, it's like you did earlier.
And I like a chalk ice.
No, I'm just saying for the Moroccan fans and the Moroccan team, it's the most beautiful tasting chalk ice ever because they never expected it to.
It's a magnum.
It's a magnum.
It's an Arctic roll.
It's a magnum.
No, it's a magnum.
Yeah.
Do you not remember Arctic roll?
I do remember Arctic roll, but it's nothing like a chalk ice. It's got sponge in it, and you have it in a bowl with a spoon. So what are you talking about?
I'm just reminiscing on old desserts.
That's fine. You can do that, but don't claim it's a choc ice because it isn't.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
My friend once ate a whole Viennetta in a row.
Viennetta.
For a bet.
Yeah.
Only cost £1 as well.
Right.
They iced them. Anyway, Morocco's choc ice is a beautiful tasting choc ice. They should be very proud of what they've achieved. And it's an incredible thing.
It is, yeah. All right, everybody, let's have a quick break where we're going to have a mini milk.
This episode of the Football Ramble is brought to you by Emirates, lovers of world football. With daily flights from London, even a World Cup can't show football 24/7.
Yeah, definitely. I think anything that Messi says in English cannot be taken as gospel. No. Can he speak English generally? No. Okay, right.
I don't think can he even speak a few words. Probably not. He's not interested.
No, I mean when he was baiting Val Veckles, they did it in Spanish, didn't they?
Yeah, because the one who could speak a little bit of English but always kind of shy it away.
Ronaldo. Original Ronaldo. He speaks fine English, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He speaks good English.
I love the fact that he's.
Well, apparently Ronaldinho could speak a bit of English, but again, never let on. He could be one of the good media, but I know that because a friend of mine once met with him when he was at Barcelona.
There's a few
that are universally understood, aren't there?
Football.
English, taxi,
Internet.
Coca-Cola, internet, football,
Avalanche.
Viennetta.
Yeah.
For those of you who've had time,
Wanker.
for those of you who've had time to think about the ice cream of choice during the outbreak there, when Andy and I were talking about the Magnum for the third place, but we don't mean a triple Magnum,
Yeah.
which I remember as being like a big thing when it came out. I was really looking forward to having it, but it was just a bit too much.
Yeah.
It was too much. Like
Okay.
it over-egged the pudding, basically. Always quite literally.
No, I think the World Cup final is that top section of a fab.
Yeah.
The third place maybe the middle section where you think, I do miss the chocolate and the 100,000th, and then anything else in the group stages, you just got that red bit.
It's time for the Betfair trade. I mean, Betfair will be absolutely delighted to coming off the back of that. Absolutely no doubt in my mind. They will be delighted with that. So Betfair, you have come into this segment, into your segment, just after Marcus really scraping the barrel of ice cream in Ice Lolly Chat. It's now time for your popular bet builder, Betfair. With Betfair's popular bet builder, you bet on the World Cup, you can use Betfair's handy app to place your bet builders, and you'll get access to some pretty decent handouts too. On today's Ramble Popular Bet Builder, there's no messing about. We're looking ahead to the big one, the World Cup final, Argentina versus France. Andy, your selection is up first. Lionel Messi to score or assist. Very nice selection. The second selection of the four, I'm with trepidation going to say, is from our friend Pete Dawson.
Hello there, Pete here. I am going to go for Argentina, France to be goalless at half time because finals are frequently stinkers.
There we go.
Yeah.
He's looking forward to it.
Yes.
So Andy's score or assist is going to have to come in the second half for this to come off. Not entirely against the realms of possibility, of course. But Pete's to be fair, he's not here to defend himself, so I'm not going to go too hard with him. But he's a very negative man.
He's an awful human.
And that's exactly the kind of thing he would say. That Pete's never going to say.
That's not my opinion, it's his.
Pete's never going to say, I reckon it's going to be 4-3. He's never going to say that.
Yeah.
So it's not a huge surprise. Marcus, you've got the third selection. What have you got?
I think Kylian Mbappe, I put him down to have at least one shot on target each half.
Nice. Oh, that's a really good shout. Really nice. He really relished the big occasion, I'm sure, just as he did 4 years ago. That's nice. And my pick is the final pick of the four. And I said this from the very start, before the first ball was even kicked. I think Argentina will win the World Cup. So I've gone for Argentina to lift the trophy. So whatever way they do it, all it matters for the bet to come in, and my selections are Argentina just need to lift the trophy. So it can be 90 minutes, it can be 100 minutes, it can be penalties. So in summary, Lionel Messi to score or assist in 90 minutes, under 0.5 first half goals, so nil at half time. Kylian Mbappe to have at least one shot target each half. Argentina to lift the trophy. It's a big one this, a £5 bet on this popular bet builder will return £326.74. If we win, all that money will go to Prostate Cancer UK. It's exclusive to the Betfair Sportsbook. T's and C's apply. 18 plus. For more information on responsible gambling, head to begambleaware.org. Marcus, it's back to you.
It's back to me, baby. Yes, it is Argentina versus France in the World Cup final. Of course. So, as we've heard, Luke, you are backing Argentina to win. That flies in the face of what Andy and I think is going to happen.
Yeah, well, that's good. That makes for good content.
Yes.
I've just thought they've got something about them since the very start. When we were preparing for the World Cup, I took a bit of a look at what they've been doing leading up to the World Cup. Also, not just to start about the Americans, they've been unbeaten.
The Copa America win was a big one for them.
I think so as well, and that gives them confidence, gives them momentum. I said to Andy a few days ago on the show, I said, I've just seen them as a team who are better. People think they get it done, they don't mind doing the dirty work, and they've got this X factor with Messi, who Andy himself said, is gearing himself up to be physically in great condition for the World Cup for a while. Yeah, and then what he did in that semi-final to Búðardalur, he's still playing that in his mind now. Incredible performance from Messi, really kind of stepped up. And I think he's had an experience, a negative experience of a World Cup final in the past. And I think that gives him motivation as well. And I think he's still got it in him to do what he does when those 10 players around him are all kind of like him, are okay for it to happen, and really want to make it happen for everyone, but know that he's the guy who does it.
It's all set up nicely, isn't it?
And I think France are vulnerable. I do think France are vulnerable. We didn't talk about Theo Hernandez
the first half, obviously scored the goal, and I probably should front up on that because I've said I don't think he's very good.
Yeah, but that doesn't sort of...
I still don't think he's very good.
That doesn't take away.
Didn't we say, or I said right at the start of this, before the World Cup
You
started,
said Turkey wanted to do
on OTC, I said, Teo Hernandez in a back four, defensively, his positioning is all over the shop. I mean, he's typical younger brother. You know, Luka is belt and braces, he's a great defender, whereas Teo Hernandez, he adds different. He's a terrific player. He adds a completely different dimension to France in an attacking sense. It would probably be better for all concerned if he was doing that as a wing back with the back three, and they were doing that until the point where Conte and Pogba got injured, which meant they shifted at the last minute to this back forward instead, which should have changed how they do things. But you know, I think France have definitely won because, like I said, they've had to roll with so many punches in this World Cup. But Argentina, ideally, you're not workshopping stuff during a major tournament. They've actually had to do that. If you look at how different they are from the team that started against Saudi Arabia, but because it's been for the benefit of Messi, it's really working for the benefit of Messi. It's okay.
Teo Hernandez actually said last night, Messi doesn't scare him, which is interesting.
Does he mean he doesn't play on the right anymore?
Like I say, yeah, he's on the other side of the pitch to me, so I'm fine, thank you very much.
Thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
Well, it is interesting. You say France have been tested, clearly they have. I would argue that Argentina haven't really. And I know this is the sort of, they haven't been tested. We talk about, they haven't been tested.
They've dropped themselves in the shit from seemingly impregnable positions.
Yeah, I
don't feel that. Not only do I not think they're a vintage side, I think that their game management is very questionable. They should have won those two games against Australia and the Netherlands really easily.
Yeah.
And they inexplicably made it quite difficult.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Argentina got a bit of a glass jaw.
But Luke is right in that their performance against Croatia was comfortably the best of the competition.
It was, and it was a lovely old job for them. You know, you win the semi-final at Canter. You could argue it was done in the first half with a few subs, and they have an extra day's rest. I think Argentina have surprised maybe a few people, and some people would have thought no, because there is a sense of destiny. That's something that people were talking about that before the tournament. Their team spirit, their work rate, and all that kind of stuff has all come together, and I give them immense credit for taking this opportunity. We've talked about England not taking opportunities, they have. So when we say, well, it was only Australia, it was a poor Netherlands side, Croatia, they took it, and you've got to take it, and they did.
They're still there. And
Yeah.
I think you guys, Andy articulates how he feels about it. And the other way of looking at it is that, you know, I watched, so when I did off to Saudi Arabia, it was at 5 AM when I was in the US at the time, so I had to watch it back. And I'd already heard all the chat about it and the fact that they lost, it was a huge deal. When I saw it cold, I was like, well, they've probably had about 6 or 7 minutes of all concentration straight after half time and conceded 2 goals. It's a bit of a freak one, and they were good apart from that. They were dominating the game. Against Netherlands, they were the better team. Netherlands created absolutely nothing until about 80 minutes in. And it was a hugely emotional, it became a hugely emotional game for a reason I don't fully still understand. But if you can see the way that Martinez reacted afterwards, the way Messi reacted afterwards, even though they'd won the game, it was quite a strange one. So that was a bit of an anomaly, and Argentina got through it anyway. Croatia, they absolutely battered them. Croatia, you know, really, their chickens really came up to roost in one. They've been unimaginative and a little bit overrated the entire tournament. What I'm trying to say is that they're a team who've grown into the tournament. When they found it tough, they've got it done. They've come into this tournament with an unbeaten streak, which is absolutely phenomenal. To me, given that France have got obvious frailties, and given that, you know, Messi played like he played in the semi-final, I think this is. I feel the same way about this game as I felt about the England-France game. It's 50-50.
You talk about France's frailties, and you're right to. But I'm telling you that Argentina have got frailties, and they just haven't really been pushed. And the reason why they haven't been pushed is because against Saudi Arabia, we talked about that game. Everyone, certainly I did fancy them to beat Mexico and Poland. Because Mexico and Poland were very disappointing. Against Australia, they made hard work of what was fairly straightforward.
It should have been a 3 or 4 nil game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They made very hard work of a very disappointing Netherlands performance in that game. And then against,
They did make hard work of that.
well, they clearly did because they took it to penalties. They were 2-0.
But there was a situation where I don't think that tells the story of the game. I think 2-0 up, they're cruising. They're a much better
That's
team.
the point, that it doesn't tell the story of the game.
But
I think.
what I'm saying is, you can look at it another way. You can go, they were 2-0 up. They were the better team.
Yeah.
They got
undone by some kind of weird emotional investment where Netherlands scored 2 goals, the second of which was completely ridiculous, right? And then extra time becomes extra time, and you're like, shit, we can't let this go. And it becomes a whole new challenge, which they then, of course, met.
Totally, so I give them credit, because if you want to go to a final of a tournament, chances are you'll have to win a penalty shootout. Now, France haven't had that, but Argentina have. And again, I give them credit. They go into that penalty shootout, and they never looked like they were going to lose it. So again, all the credit in the world there. My point is that no one has really gone at them. No one has really tested that defence. No one like a forward like Giroud has come up who can actually do something and score goals. Anyone has felt Vico's who's got a couple. But again, Croatia was so ponderous and didn't have much cutting edge. Despite their impressive performances, again, no disrespect to them, they've reached a semi-final of the World Cup.
The saddest indictment against them is that Belgium scored 2 against them.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm saying,
I'll be most disappointed about that.
yeah, but France have come across better teams, I think, than Argentina, England and Morocco. The way they pushed France, and France still came through it. Whether it was as comfortable as some may make out, whether it wasn't, you can argue that.
But what is indisputable is they've shown a greater level of emotional control than Argentina.
Definitely, and I think
that's vital. I think that can work both ways.
But Argentina, what I was about to say, so to back up your point about Argentina going to win, the fact is that they do make it such an emotional affair, and they've ridden that all the way to the final. Now, I would argue that perhaps they've not played the best, but they've still got there. That's the point. You find yourselves in the final. It's a 90-minute football match, possibly 120 minutes. Anything can happen, and they've got quality and Messi, of course, and some other players. But the way they've set up has been well, and they changed it up tactically against the Netherlands to show that there's a little bit of flexibility. But I think with Griezmann doing bits, and I think with Giroud, Mbappe, and Dembele, and if Rabiot comes out of the final, these are players that they've not really come up against.
Well, you know what you need? You need an extra striker, obviously. That's really good.
Well, Andy, that brings us up nicely, doesn't it? Because apparently Real Madrid have given Karim Benzema permission to travel back to Qatar for the final, because it looks like he's available to play.
That's amazing. I didn't even ever consider that would be possible.
Imagine they started him instead of Giroud.
You've had one. You've had a World Cup.
You've had a good run.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't care if you've scored goals.
I mean, surely it's one of those situations that presents more problems than it solves, right? Because France are in the final, they're doing well, they don't really have any problems to solve. And Benzema comes along, presumably with a bit of an ego with him, wants to be a part of it. That is a test of man management for the end of shot. Nice to have up your sleeve, I suppose. It's like that thing I think it's incredibly unlikely. I think it's more likely to be as support for the squad. But you know that there was, I'm sure I've talked about it before, the bathrooms in FIFA 99 where you could bring players in and bring them on at half time. Right. So like, I remember like going to the bathroom with my friend, like bringing on Batistuta and Ronaldo from the bench, having just co-opted them into his team while I was in the bathroom. Right, okay, you reckon they might do that? Batistuta and Ronaldo, the original. Well, they're there. I mean, come on.
Everyone's there in those big armchairs, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of watching the game with the fans, I mean, Argentina like their fans.
With regards to the fans in Argentina, did you hear that a man in Buenos Aires reported he's so desperate to get home for the start of the semi-final against Croatia that he stole a bus to speed up his journey? There's a tiny bit more to it than that, but it's still ultimately bus.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
There are people on it.
Well, they were held up at a traffic light, and the bus driver is said to have nipped off to buy something in the kiosk.
He should be doing that at a traffic
Shouldn't
light.
be doing that.
No.
I mean, I like.
No one's coming out of this with any credit.
Why is he doing that? It's irresponsible on every single level, even if there's no football match on. And one fan was like, well, I'm not having this. And off he went. The passenger reportedly made it 4 kilometres before the stop. It's not by the authorities.
But did he do the stops on the way?
Yeah, that's a good. We need to clarify that.
Because if he's doing the stops on the way, he's not actually getting out.
And if he looked like Keanu Reeves, now we're talking.
He gets on the he gets on the PA. Good news for everyone who lives near me.
Yeah, exactly. You might have stitched a load of people right up.
Oh, who's it? Oh, it's Dave. Oh, yeah, it is 2 streets down for me. Crack on, Dave.
Yeah. So it'd be an incredible final.
Oh, yeah.
It's a proper showpiece. That you've got 2 huge football.
I didn't want it to be France Croatia again, so I thought they'd be brilliant.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
But it's not going to be that. That's a great thing.
But Morocco Argentina would have been, from a fan point of view, that would have been something left trouble.
And then Messi would be thinking, we can't get it done today.
Yeah.
Never going to get it done.
Exactly.
And he's the last roll of the dice for big Lions.
Well, he said it's his last World Cup, which is quite obvious.
We know that.
But there we are. Gentlemen, before we go, the debate over the position of the England manager is sort of rumbling on. We'll just finish with a little bit of chat there. Obviously, Southgate hasn't made a decision yet. It will be his decision. Whether that's in the next few weeks, we will find out whether he wants to stay on. Certainly, with the but there have been a couple of people linked to the job. Jamie Carragher and others have been saying that the England manager should always be English, which quite often Richard Keys took issue with, saying, what sort of nonsense is this? It borders on racism. The England coach should be the best person available. England should not hide behind closed borders and lines. I love it when Keys thinks high ground. He just gets it wrong.
Yeah, he also, if you just scroll back a bit a few years ago, Richard Keys did exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the man is an absolute mess.
Hunts with the hounds and runs with the wankers. Jamie Carragher replied, it borders on racism, quoting Keys. I hope you send similar tweets to a lot of the journalists who have the same opinion. Or is it because I work for Sky? You were a sad, desperate band. P.S. Love the blogs. Oh, best bit there.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
dear.
nice, isn't it? Because you basically really reversed it on the listeners there, because you said you were going to start talking about Gareth Southgate,
Yeah.
and it was just a little Trojan horse, wasn't it, to get a bit of Keysy chat.
Indeed it was. Well, so what are your thoughts then? Southgate will move on at some point, of course, whether it's in the next
No.
few weeks
No,
or in 10 years.
you're not letting him move on. No.
I would love him to stay for 100 years. No, I think at some point, whether it's Southgate decides to step down, or he leaves after the coach, or whatever it is happening. Do you think that a foreign manager's okay for England, or do you think?
I think a foreign manager is okay for England, but I think there's a little bit of confusion in the when people are saying, I want whoever it is who's the best person for the job, they think it's the best coach out there, period. So whether that be Tuchel or Pochettino, and you know what, I don't think the best coach out there on a global level is the best coach for the England job.
Yeah.
Just as I wouldn't particularly think Gareth Southgate was a good choice for Manchester City or Liverpool if we're talking in a post-England
Well, he was
sense.
linked to Manchester United.
Yeah.
Which I think.
Yeah, to me that doesn't make any sense.
No.
I think we've been there with Capello before. The idea of plugging someone in, but especially someone as twitchy and hyperactive as Tuchel. Like, I'm sure that inactivity for a couple of months will really agree with him.
Yeah, right.
It seems to me completely bizarre, this idea that, you need this short, sharp shock to push England over the hump. I don't think that's true at all. Like I said, in terms of the performance against France, I don't think they could have done much differently. He's clearly learned a lot tactically.
He learns every tournament.
It's moved on. I would agree with that. But also, I think coaching England, it's about the reason that Southgate is good is not just because of his human side. It's because having been the head of the league development, having been the under-21s coach, he understands the whole process. A good process eventually equals good results. I think he's on that Jurgen Love sort of trip that I think England will get there eventually, like you do. So for me,
But if he was to leave, though, Andy, so I understand.
so for me, if he was to leave,
yeah.
like the obvious replacement straight away, if he doesn't take everyone with him, is Steve Holland.
Well, okay.
And
I mean,
that's not a sexy name, but I think
You might know of Steve Netherlands.
Stephen.
the right next appointment for England will not be a sexy one. You can't go back to Sven or Capello times from where
Wow,
we
you've
are.
gone too far there.
Obviously.
Don't be saying that to me, man.
Also, he's just been appointed sporting director for a club in the Swedish second division.
Has he just?
Yeah.
Come on, you can't keep him down.
Has he not given you a ring, Marcus?
Oh, come on, Andy. He doesn't have a phone on him.
Out there in the lakes.
It's only on Hinge.
So, Andy, I think what you're saying there is that we should refrain from going for the sort of the big, sexy, saucy option,
Yes.
which will inevitably
Yes.
be a foreign coach. Which I tend to agree.
But it's not the nationality.
Sure,
It's the
yeah.
thinking behind what sort of coach it should be
But
that I have the issue with.
and therefore, it is more likely
Yes.
to be an English.
Yes.
Look, what do you feel on that? this idea it should be English, or do you think best person for the job, whoever that may be?
As far as I know, and you know, Andy mentioned Yogi Love there, and I think I'm right in saying Yogi Love came in as part of a process, and he was an assistant for a while, right?
He was assistant to Jurgen Klinsmann,
That's right.
and then steps up, which was where the Holland suggestion comes from.
Which is what the FA tried to do with Stuart Pearce and Capello, which obviously.
Well, it won't surprise. Yeah, well, exactly. It won't surprise anyone to know the FA, as far as I know, have done nothing towards succession planning for Gareth Southgate.
And McLaren was another one.
Yeah, but they've done. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is they've done nothing towards succession planning to a post-Southgate world that England will inevitably find themselves in at some point, which is negligent. It's the latest example of negligence from that organisation. Not really for a purpose. That Gareth Southgate is the best thing that ever happened to the FA since I've been watching football. And I wouldn't be surprised if Southgate, if he does decide to move on, which I really hope he doesn't, genuinely hope he doesn't. If he does, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a good bloke about it and says that I'll try and help line up with the suggestions going to be. I would like him to stay through to the end of his contract. I think Andy's right about the idea that if you look at not just Yogi Love's move journey with Germany, but also Deschamps' journey with France, they're quite similar. Imagine for a long time, you know, had to deal with disappointment along the way and eventually got there. I think he can do exactly that path. Doesn't mean they'll win anything, because that's not how it works, but it gives us the best chance of doing so. Sadly, I don't have any faith at all that the FA will make the right decision after Southgate goes when he inevitably goes. I just hope it isn't soon. I just think we've got to deal with it right now, because what he's been able to do there is really completely overhaul what the England team is, what it represents, how it plays, how it conducts itself, etc., etc. And I think the way he's managed to do that is not just because he's a thoughtful guy who thinks about the big picture and is able to implement the changes he's implemented. He's got Steve Holland doing the tactics, who's a really well-respected coach as well, so that's part of the team. But also, I feel like what hasn't been mentioned enough is the reason Southgate was able to change it is because, in a weird way, he was also kind of part of that whole thing. He was part of that legacy of disappointment with England. And when he talked about the legacy of disappointment, when he talked about the mistakes that were made, when he talked about the regrets, it felt really authentic.
Yeah,
it felt like a passionate, actually really powerful way of trying to address what needed to change almost from within. And he could say, look, the reason we need to do this is because I was part of it and I know what it was like, and that's why I can't do the same again. So yeah, I would also say that I do think that the overall, I think it should be a change that I think the English manager probably should be English. I think it's probably better if it is, not because I have any issue at all with us foreign people.
Yeah, no, of course.
But just because I think, you know, it kind of feels like it's more practical. It's a more natural fit as well.
Yeah.
The players have to be. So, yeah.
So we're saying Franklin.
Andy was hanging around with Tim Sherwood just so maybe you can any insight on that.
Look, I'll put in a good word for him at any time.
Yeah, I don't know. The only one I would say who was really that I wouldn't mind who's not English, but he's Northern Irish, was his brother Brendan.
This is why this can't happen.
Why?
Because you fucking start talking about Brendan Rodgers all the time.
All the time.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Sven is his assistant. God, what a sexy duo. Well, gentlemen, one country that are currently on the hunt for a new manager is Belgium. And the official job advert for the position of men's team head coach is up on the Belgium FA
I saw it,
website.
I read it, yeah, I read it.
Yeah, it's all there, you could apply for it. I implore you to do so. If, though, you have these credentials, because according to the advert, any candidate should be extremely ambitious and have the necessary top-level international experience. They should also be described as a serial winner with experience of managing tournaments.
Until we got to that last sentence, I was going to say I want the interactive scene.
Serial winner.
Serial winner, Andy Brasson.
Serial yoga.
There we are.
serial least dickhead in hot yoga. Which is a kind of win.
There you are, you see, Andy. Yeah. No show tomorrow, everybody. There will be no Football Ramble podcast tomorrow. If you just cannot wait to hear from us again, remember there are over 100 bonus episodes waiting for you on our Patreon. That's patreon.com/football ramble. We'll be back first thing on Saturday to preview that delicious Arctic roll of a playoff between Morocco and Croatia, or choc ice, or Zoom mini milk, twister, yeah, all of that. So yes, get yourselves over there. Of course, we'll be talking about the World Cup final as well. That will be on Sunday evening. Thank you very much for listening to the Football Ramble, part of the Acast Creator Network. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Luke Moore.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy Brasson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
podcast where we explore the world of technology and innovation with leading industry experts.
Don't worry, this is Money Talks, not Tech Talks, but bear with me. If you've been on social media recently, you'll have seen the output of ChatGPT, which uses artificial intelligence to generate text. The company that created it, OpenAI, is run by Sam Altman, a Silicon Valley entrepreneur. We asked the chatbot to come up with an introduction to this episode using an interview with Sam.
In today's episode, we interview Sam Altman, co-founder and CEO of OpenAI.
Not quite right, this episode covers much more ground, but as promised, here's Sam talking about the history of Silicon Valley as he remembers it.
Bombed out after the dot-com bust. Out of the rubble, roughly starting in 2005. You had things like AWS pretty soon, you got things like the iPhone. And we had this Cambrian explosion of new technology, and it was incredibly exciting. It was an amazing thing to be part of. And we got a lot of stuff that we now take for granted.
Along with AWS, or Amazon Web Services, and the iPhone came Facebook, Twitter, and Uber.
Altman discusses the early days of the tech boom and how it led to the creation of many successful companies we know today. He also touches on the changing mindset of entrepreneurs and the shift towards working on projects with longer time horizons and greater societal impact.
Now, I think a bunch went wrong in that process. But one of the things that I think went right is a lot of people got rich and said, okay, now what? All of the apps we've made are great, but like, it's somehow not enough. What does the world really like need? Again, out of the rubble, out of the ashes, like this time the new Phoenix is emerging. I'm very excited. Again, I feel very grateful to the program.
What went wrong? And is he right to be excited? You're listening to Money Talks from The Economist, our weekly podcast on the markets, the economy, and the world of business. In Washington, D.C., I'm Alice Fulwood.
In London, I'm Samaya Keynes.
In Singapore, I'm Mike Bird.
And in today's show, we explore the ideology of the builder class, the Silicon Valley techies who have turned their attention to the world's biggest problems.
First, we learn how Silicon Valley came to be.
This multi-generational connection from defense industry to silicon startups to then the personal computer industry, and all of a sudden people know what Silicon Valley actually is.
Then we hear why their pontificating might just be public relations.
These founders really want to be taken seriously as thinkers. And I have to say on that score, they're not particularly successful. But if the point is to bamboozle media regulators into holding off on necessary regulation, they've been quite effective at that.
Finally, we examine why it matters what Silicon Valley thinks.
We're getting to the stage where Silicon Valley is much more mature, much more powerful than it used to be. It's doing all these activities that previously would have been left to governments and nonprofits.
To figure out what the builder class really wants and what that means for the rest of us. Mike Subir, hello.
Hi, Alice.
Hello from a country stricken by strikes and snow.
Yes, my mother was moaning to me this week about having to send all her Christmas cards out early because the postmen have all taken their leave.
I sort of find well-functioning public services a bit dull, a bit overrated. I want to be surprised. It adds to the sort of variety of life, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's easy for you to say from Singapore.
Yes, I recall the metro running late was once on the front page of the Straits Times when I was in Singapore. Still, this week we talk about how it is not only governments that are interested in solving society's biggest problems. The tech industry's titans now seem to be building lots of things that go beyond social media apps.
Like crypto startups?
Even more useful than that, if you can possibly imagine it. Our colleague Arjun Ramani has penned an article about the expansive efforts of Silicon Valley's builder class, a group who gained their clout by founding successful startups, but who now occupy themselves writing long essays about the world's problems. Should we hear from him now?
Let's.
Yes, let's.
Hi Arjun, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Alice. Great to be on.
So you've written an excellent piece for our Christmas issue in which you describe the sort of motivation and ambition of some of Silicon Valley's founders and how it sort of stretches well beyond their business interests. What do you think is the sort of ethos of the Valley?
A strange thing is kind of happening. So there's this growing segment of Silicon Valley's tech elite with much broader interests than your usual business titans. So I think in a sense the Valley has kind of matured to the point where there's this highly intellectualized part of it where you get clout and wealth from business, but it's your philanthropic side projects or even your blog posts or essays on big questions about the future of mankind and technology that really determine your status and your influence. So, you know, a couple examples of this include Patrick Collison, who's the CEO of Stripe, which is a payments firm, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, which is its AI lab. You know, it's been in the news lately for its new fancy chatbot called ChatGPT. And another person who I also interviewed for this piece, Joe Lonsdale, who is a co-founder of Palantir, now runs a venture capital firm. And so this kind of archetype, you know, of a tech titan who is a much broader interest than just their business is becoming much more common. You know, the number of tech billionaires in America has more than doubled in the last decade. That's faster than any other industry. When I interviewed Lonsdale for this piece, he called it a builder class. You might have also heard of some of the other examples here. So like Dustin Moskovitz, who's a co-founder of Facebook, or Vitalik Buterin, who founded Ethereum, the cryptocurrency, and even, you know, until recently, Sam Bankman-Fried, who founded the cryptocurrency exchange FTX that just blew up. And they all have their own philanthropic side projects that are quite strange, like this whole effective altruism movement that lots of people have been talking about. So it's worth noting that all these folks are kind of, you know, pretty young. They're under or at 40 years old. And they kind of come to power at a time when the tech industry is being highly scrutinized by society for a lot of the, you know, externalities that it's caused, such as social media and big tech. And it's also a more mature industry, as I mentioned, so that's probably contributed to this kind of broader set of interests that is maybe the new ethos of this corner of the valley.
And where did this kind of thought leadership going hand in hand with clout in tech come from? You know, who are the sort of real thought leaders that led people in this direction?
So I think, you know, two of the really interesting, you might even call them intellectual fathers to a lot of the figures I just mentioned, are Peter Thiel and Paul Graham. So just to explain who they are. So Thiel, he co-founded PayPal with Elon Musk several decades ago, so around 2000. He's also an early backer of Facebook, which is how he got a lot of his wealth. You know, he's done a lot of things throughout his career, but most recently he's come in the news for, you know, supporting Trump and several other relatively right-wing Republican candidates. And so when I spoke with Lonsdale, he actually called him like a professor of sorts, because he studied philosophy, he's fascinated by it. He founded a campus newspaper when he was a student at Stanford. He writes essays about the French philosopher René Girard, who he actually studied with. So he's kind of a very, very different character than your usual business person. He also bankrolled several projects of an intellectual community within Silicon Valley in the early 2000s that calls themselves the Rationality Community. So this is kind of a group of mostly people in and around the tech industry who are obsessed with reducing their cognitive biases. And as early as the 1990s, they were, you know, concerned with the risk of super powerful artificial intelligence.
And what about Paul Graham, the other intellectual father that you mentioned?
Yeah, so Graham, you know, he's probably most well known for founding Y Combinator in 2005. So Y Combinator, also known as YC, is probably the most well-known accelerator in Silicon Valley, and it really ushered in this wave of internet companies that has come to define the last 20 years of tech innovation. He's kind of well known for writing these very long and meandering essays on everything from obscure programming languages to cities and the future of politics. And if you go to a party in the Valley, more often than not, you'll hear someone maybe mentioning Paul Graham and talking about one of his essays. It's kind of like required reading almost if you're a young engineer.
If you were to go to one of those Silicon Valley parties today, what's the mood like in the Valley? You know, this year has been terrible for tech in many ways. The sort of market valuations of a lot of tech titans have crashed, there have been lots of layoffs, and you've had the fall of some of the sort of whiz-kid builder class types like Sam Bankman-Fried. Is the builder class and sort of lofty thinking humbled at all?
So surprisingly, not so much. I think maybe perhaps because they've been, disappointed with parts of the tech industry for a while. These frustrations are maybe longer standing. So there's kind of a sense that the transformation that came about because of big tech, including all the social media giants, didn't really live up to the excitement or wealth that it generated. For example, Peter Thiel actually once said, we wanted flying cars, instead we got 140 characters, kind of remarking about the